This is the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I've had it for about 3 or 4 days. And this is the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and I've had it for most of this year. And in this episode, I want to talk about my initial thoughts between these two. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Let me make something very clear from the start. I purchased both of these phones with my own money. None of this is sponsored. None of this, what is being created right here, was, asked to be said or anything like that. This is all my own creation. I just want to make that very clear. Now, both of these phones are around $1,300. They're both up there in the price tag. But I do feel like the Samsung trade-in values are more generous, not in the sense of like Apple does have some really generous trade-in offers as well, especially if you're trading in iPhones, but they're just absolute trash if you're trading in Android devices. The Samsung Galaxy usually gives you that instant trade-in value if you do it online, versus Apple, you have to go in store to get that instant trade-in value, and that only will apply to their iPhone devices and maybe in a here and there an Android phone, but usually it's mostly the Apple devices. So I like the trade-in values, and I think for the amount of features you're getting, I feel like the S24 Ultra and the Samsungs in general typically just give better discounts. So I want to make that clear. Also, I think the amount of features you get value for money is way more on the Samsung phone. But the iPhone, I can't get over the fact of how much you can resell this for later. So this phone holds its value a little bit better. So let's talk about my initial take on the body and the build. Now, these couldn't be more similar and more different. What do you mean by that? Well, similar in the sense that they have that same titanium feel, that same infused glass on the rear on both of them. So they got that same feel in terms of that, the material choices and stuff like that. But there's so much different in the ergonomics due to the shapes. And I like that the shapes are different because it gives customers choice. However, I will say I'm digging the 16 Pro Max more, and same as the 15 Pro Max. I just dig this shape. I think it's more ergonomic in the palm of the hand. I think it just feels nicer to hold because of those curved corners right there. And they're just smooth edges, so it just feels nicer to hold, I think, the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It's also a lighter phone than the S24 Ultra, but that doesn't mean that the shape of the S24 Ultra is not functional and unique. But I think Samsung goes for more of a practical, approach for the S Pen, giving you more of a note-like canvas. And it's nice, it really is, but I think from holding it perspective, this is a little sharper in the corners. And while some of the older Samsungs were even sharper than this, is getting smoother, I do think that this shape is definitely a little bit less practical. And when you do put this phone like in a case or something like that, it feels super bulky. It feels like you're holding a little mini television in your pocket. So it's definitely a huge device here. Both of them are pretty huge for sure, but they both have really good durability with their bodies and build. And you might be noticing that the Samsung kind of looks like it is bigger. It seems a little taller than the iPhone 16 Pro Max, but it's not bigger technically because it's not technically a bigger screen because the iPhone has thinner bezels, but it kind of feels that way. So I have the illusion because of the shape and the height of the S24 Ultra, it kind of still feels like a slightly bigger phone. Until you hold it. The iPhone feels a little wider in the display, and then the Samsung feels taller and more like a big square. Either way you go, these are absolutely massive phones. They're huge. I do want to mention, though, when we're talking about the body and the build, though, that the iPhone has grade 5 titanium, which is twice as strong as the grade 2 titanium on the Galaxy S24. I also noticed that my S24 Ultra here, the titanium chipped in the corner. I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but I got some scuffing right there. I don't know how. I never even dropped this phone once. So this phone to me definitely gets a little scuffed up a little bit easier on my Samsung, but that could just be me. I don't know how yours is holding up. Let me know down below. All right, now when it comes to the display, I definitely been preferring something about the iPhone's display over the S24 Ultra. It's the color reproduction. I understand they went for some more anti-reflective properties, but they improved this feature with they improved the display. I feel like the display had better color reproduction on my Z Fold 6, so I'm looking forward to see what they do with the new color reproduction on the Galaxy S25 Ultra. Usually we're used to very vivid Samsung panels, and while they did add a vivid mode, which boosted the color, it kind of looked a little bit artificial, especially if you turn this vivid slider all the way up. It just never really looked exactly as good as like the S23 Ultra. So this was one of my least favorite Samsung displays in a while in terms of that element. Although it does have a very big pro that people don't tend to talk about, and that is the phone has a very sharp panel, way over 500 ppi versus the 460 ppi over here. So this actually has a sharper panel than the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It actually has sharper text, so it looks sharper and things of that sort. It also has one of the smallest punch holes on an Android phone, so that's definitely something I like. I don't really like this dynamic island on this display. It definitely takes away from the glorious size of this thing, but it's definitely a really nice color reproduction. And it's very smooth with its 120 hertz, but so is the Samsung with its 120 hertz. Both of them very smooth in that element. I also think that the display here on the iPhone 16 Pro Max tends to get slightly dimmer if you want to dim it down at nighttime. But generally, it's a huge display for viewing content here. Generally, it's a very, very nice overall display for viewing content, but so is this one right here. Let me take it over here to the Samsung, and you'll see a really nice panel. Now, while I don't love the fact that the Samsung's color reproduction isn't as nice as the S23 Ultra, I do love its anti-reflective coating. So if you take a look at this anti-reflective ability of the Samsung, look at this thing. There's like no reflections really compared to the iPhone. And I do have a screen protector on both of them, so that could be playing into it a lot. But I find that generally speaking, the Samsung has the best anti-reflection on a smartphone today. So you'll have to choose which one you like more. Personally, I don't think you can go wrong either way. They're both excellent media consumption devices. But the Samsung, you can see in this example, because of its squared, it just kind of looks bigger, even if it's not technically a bigger panel. I mean, it's 0.1 inches. It's really nothing. It's not a big deal. So let's talk about the software, because I do have some thoughts here on the software as well. A lot of people say that the iPhone is starting to feel more like Android, and I would agree to an extent. It does kind of, with the ability to put apps wherever you want. You can go ahead and customize now, change different icons. One thing I like about iOS though now is that all the icons actually match up when you tint them. I wish there was a lighter mode like this where you could change the colors of the icons, but with lighter apps. That would be a nice touch. But they are giving you these all dark mode icons, which is a pretty cool touch. You could do this on the Android phone as well, but it will take a little bit more work. Like you have to go download the app and do that. So they're finding a way to get it customizable, but also still simple. Now on the Samsung though, you have a lot more customization features. You can find a lot of them built right in within the phone, but you can also go to themes in the Galaxy Store and you could theme this thing out however you like. In addition, you could go here and you could go to wallpapers and style. You could change color palettes and you could change icons there as well. You can also change the grid layouts and how many icons are on the screen. And the list goes on and on. This is an Android phone at the end of the day, and this phone is still more customizable than that phone over there. And I find that generally the software is more fun to use. There's just a lot more to do on the Samsung, and I just generally don't get as bored using the Samsung phone over the iPhone. But that boring factor of the iPhone means that it's super smooth and reliable all the time. So I'm not like mad about that. I'm just saying that if I want to have some fun and be entertained, I'm going to use the Samsung all day over the iPhone. If I just want old trusty reliable, I'm going to use the iPhone all day. A couple other areas where the Samsung really does still shine over the iPhone, and it really irks me that this phone has a 6.9 now. We still cannot split screen on this phone. No, one app at a time. Huge, massive display with tons of room, one app at a time. Whereas Samsung, I could just pull in an app right here. I could flip it around. I could favorite an app pair. I could bring another app if I want to. You could see right here. Let me just grab the phone, for example. We'll pop that right there. You could just do multiple apps at once. And not to mention, the S Pen also provides a lot of functionality and note-taking experience, which makes this phone unlike any other phone on the market today, including the ability to write tasks on your calendar, take quick notes, and smart select features. So it's really cool. Also, you can go ahead and use circle to search right here and search anything on screen. So let's search this app up, and you'll see there's that application with more things you could learn about it right there. So Those are some true advantages in usability, I feel like, for the S line. When we dig around in the settings, you'll see both of them have a lot to do, but if you look a little closer, Samsung has a little bit more to do. They have a whole section about advanced features. In addition, they have a labs features, which are like beta things you can use and see. Sometimes though they're experimental, but they're still fun to play with. Then the S Pen, which is down here, inserted in the body. You have S Pen software. You do have side button software, which you do have here with the action button as well. So that's not like a huge advantage to the Samsung over there. But you do have quite a bit, I would say, to play around with here inside the settings, but you also have that on the iPhone. So they're pretty fun there to play around with in settings. I will say though that I like how Samsung launched their phone with Galaxy AI. They were promoting it and they launched it with it. I understand you could just download beta 18.1, but if somebody walks in the store, they see the ad for Apple Intelligence or they see it online, hello Apple Intelligence, and it's not on the phone out of the box. It's just a little weird. I'm not a big fan of that. It's kind of like, why are they telling me that it's there, but it's not on the phone just yet? It's coming later. Nah, I don't like that. I wish it was on the phone right out of the box. Because when I bought my Samsung earlier this year, months ago, I was able to play around with this stuff right away. Whereas I got to wait for the next software 18.1 to come to the iPhone. Now I know this is not going to age well. This is going to age like milk, me talking about this, because in the future it's going to be on here. You might be watching this video and say, well, that doesn't apply anymore. But I'm an early adopter of this phone, and this is early video on this phone. So definitely not a fan of that. But overall, I would say their software is very, very fun to use on both of them. But the iPhone tends to get a little bit more boring in my opinion. Although it does get software updates faster, Samsung is one of the best at doing software updates on Android. I get at least one every month. Now, you seen my app test the other day. You seen my Geekbench test. The iPhone has taken the lead in performance. In technical performance, it has. I have been playing games on both though, and I will tell you that the Samsung still seems to have better heat management than the iPhone. This phone doesn't get as hot or warm under gaming as this device does. This one really made the phone hot. I was playing Car Street X over here, or Car X Street, whatever. I was playing this game the other day. It's an open world game, and it got really warm playing this game, like super warm, uncomfortably so, like 105, 110. I'm not saying they have heat management problems. It's better. It sustains its performance better than the 15 Pro Max, but this phone still gets too warm under heavy gaming load versus like the S24 Ultra. So while this one has better performance technically, I like how this one does heat management a little bit better on the right. Although the iPhone 16 Pro Max is a nice improvement over the 15 Pro Max, it still doesn't get like, it's still not like a cool to the touch phone when doing heavier tasks. So they can still do better, I would say, in that area. Another thing is the storage. Apple doesn't really cut you any deals on storage whatsoever. They charge a full retail, and if you want more storage, you're going to pay for more storage. Samsung, when I bought this phone, I got the same amount. I got twice as much storage for the price of the base level storage for this phone under pre-order. So the Samsung deals come into effect with that as well. You're getting twice as much memory for, the same price. You're not getting that with the iPhone. You're going to pay like an extra $100, $200 for more storage. So not a fan of that. I do think Samsung has the better storage value. We do have UFS 4.0 versus NVMe over here. Both of them transfer well with their respective laptops. So if you're using a Galaxy Book, this will transfer very well, or other Windows laptops, it also transfers very well and quickly. And this does well with things like AirDrop and, connecting to other Apple products when transferring files. So 3 days later with the cameras, it's been raining here, so I haven't actually took them out for a proper comparison. But I will say, generally, what I'm seeing on my day-to-day so far is just kind of the same thing as the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Like, you have these nice 5x, 25 times zoom. You do have a spatial video, and you do have better video quality. Every year it gets a little bit better, especially now you have the high quality on the ultra wide. They do have this ability to go 4K 120, but I'm still not a fan of the selfie camera being the same 12 megapixels. But overall, DxOMark gave this the highest video quality on a phone. The Samsung over here, though, has been my favorite for zooming, and I just like the functionality of 200 megapixels, 50 megapixels, and you'll see expert RAW. The processing can be a little soft for some people, and some people are not a fan of how they post-process their photos. But you have a lot of fun modes like dual recording, food modes, pro video, pro, and it's all right in here front and center. You don't got to go digging around in the settings. So it's fun, and you can also add more features as well. So it's a really fun camera to use, I would say, on the Samsung. And then over here, I really like the front-facing camera as well. It's a little softer than the iPhone, but it definitely makes your face look a little more pleasing. At the end of the day, though, we don't have 4K 120. We do have 8K 30, though. Which one do you think is more useful? I think it just depends on the user, but I would say I don't think either one of them are super useful to the general user. They're going to be more of those, niche camera segment. But generally, it really just comes down to preference with those cameras. Like, do you like the way Samsung produces results or iPhone? Some people have been saying that their thoughts on this camera button are gimmicky. For me, I don't think it is. I think it's pretty useful, especially as just a shutter key. This part I don't really care about. I think that's slower and clunkier than just going like this. But just as a shutter key, I kind of like it because it gives me that feel like a camera. But I have been finding myself when I'm holding it to like click this button on accident. So be careful with that. If you're holding your phone, you might just accidentally grab it like this and click that button on accident because it's over there. But definitely cameras, again, going to come down to personal preference. But a few days later, I'm still loving the S24 Ultra's camera. I'm going to be honest with you. But I still like what Apple's bringing here with the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It's a really nice setup as well. So I just don't feel like either one I'm using, I'm going wrong. I'm doing great. Whichever phone I'm using, I'm getting great results. I do have to say, in the area of battery, I feel like I'm getting better battery life with the iPhone so far. It definitely feels like it can last a little bit longer under heavy use, but it's not by a substantial margin. It's not like, oh my goodness, this phone is blowing away the S24 Ultra, but it is a little bit better. Especially, but the Samsung still charges faster in my experience. It also has a reverse wireless charging. This phone does not. So there's still benefits to buying the Samsung, and the pack is actually technically larger in here. The actual size of the battery is still larger in the S24 Ultra, so it might last a little bit longer, like have better longevity with in terms of it's still being really good battery throughout the day. Versus the iPhone might lose its capacity a little faster, but there are new features in here to help you prolong your battery experience, like this one right here. Go to charging, change your charging limits and stuff like that. So there are some nice additions there that can help it last. But Samsung also has that as well in their battery section. You go to battery protections and you could change how much you want to preserve your battery. So it really depends on how long you plan to keep either one of these phones. I wanted to say a few days later, both of them have been doing fine in terms of the phone call quality. Audio performance has been strong on both. I do have to say, I think Samsung has better color options this year. Like, they have like a lot of like exclusive colors and stuff. And I do think they give you a few more good color options. I'm not saying that this one is particularly nicer than the Desert Titanium. I'm just saying that they have more color options, especially with their online exclusives. And I would expect them to bring out some nice colors when it comes to the S25 Ultra. But at the end of the day, I have to say, 3 days later, I've only had this for a few days. I think it's like 4 now. But this phone right here it just feels like it was already beating the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The S24 Ultra was already beating that phone. And now it's just competing head on, I feel like, with the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I know some people think that this phone is only going to compete with the S25 Ultra. Sure, yeah, because that's the next one. But they kind of flip-flop. It's like it'll be like the iPhone is after this phone, so it's a little bit better. And then the S25 Ultra will be a little bit better than this. And then the iPhone 17 is a little better than that one. It's just like they take turns, basically, is what it feels like. But I feel like the Samsung still has a lot of competitive features, even with the current iPhone 16 Pro Max that just came out. So I wouldn't feel bad if I was Samsung. I wouldn't feel like I'm way behind. I don't even feel like I'm behind using this phone. I feel like I'm on the same level still. So it's a great options this year. But at the end of the day, the iPhone is probably taking the win because it has better battery life, better video quality, and it's exceeding in performance. So I do think it's time for Samsung to hit back with another option, the S25 Ultra, obviously. But this one held up pretty freaking well all year long and has Galaxy AI to boot. and you're going to be getting Apple Intelligence soon, so it's going to become even tighter in the future. But I love both of these, and I'm going to do a more technical tech spec review in the future. I want to do a more in-depth comparison. This was a very opinionated, subjective review, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all in my next comparisons. And I do have more comparisons coming on the base 16, the 16 Pro. I'm just getting my ideas out on the 16 Pro Max first. Catch you all in the next episode. Be sure to be well, and peace.